Welcome back, everyone, to another Thrawn discussion, and today we're going to be talking about Thrawn Ascendancy Greater Good. Now, if you haven't seen my first talk on the first book in the series, then you can click right up here, but for now, be warned, there's going to be spoilers for the first and second book in the Thrawn Ascendancy series. Starting off, let's just jump right into the plot, and it opens up with Thurfian, who is a senior member of the Mitth family. And the Mitth are essentially one of the 9 ruling families in the Chiss Ascendancy. There are 40 great families, but there are only 9 ruling families. And he's just kind of contemplating how much he hates Thrawn when Zistalmu walks in. And Zistalmu is part of the Arizi family and also one of the 9 ruling families. Now, normally these families hate each other, but they decide, you know what? We hate Thrawn even more, so let's join forces to oust Thrawn. The second point of view is taken from a character named Hapleaf, and he is an Akbui, that's his race, and he is a sociopath. I mean, he's a telepath. And Jixtus, who is the new big bad villain of the Ascendancy, sends Hapleaf on a quest to the Chiss homeworld to start sowing their destruction. He pretends to be part of some nomad family that just wanders the chaos and looks for new, awesome experiences. And he has like an entire little colony with them. He ends up befriending a engaged couple and says, you know, like, I think these guys can get me closer politically to someone more connected. He also sets up a little farming operation. And that farmer, his name is Lacro. Lacro doesn't trust Hapleaf. And honestly, neither does the female betrothed Yomi. She thinks he's also kind of a sleazeball, which is definitely fair. He's been given out this metal jewelry, and it's found out that this is the rarest metal in the chaos, Nyx. And they think, wow, if you've got a mine so rich in Nyx, you know, maybe you can just give us a little bit of that. So they decide, let's go conquer this mine and steal it for ourselves, and that way we can elevate our status from a great family to a ruling family. And it's revealed later that this happened to a few great families on the Chiss Ascendancy world, or, you know, moons or subplanets, and that's kind of how they're starting to sow destruction and get a little bit of infighting and people trying to fight over this mine and different things like that. At one point, Yomi, the female, actually catches on that he is telepathic, and he ends up murdering her and throwing her out into hyperspace as they are traveling through hyperspace. So, pretty gruesome stuff. He ends up lying to Yopanek, the male betrothed, saying like, "Oh, yep, she went off on a little trip by herself, and she'll catch up with you later. Don't think too much into that." Obviously, he should not have believed that story, but he did really want to go to this other planet that Hapleaf wanted to go to, so he just kind of, you know, wanted to believe it so bad that he just went with it. And honestly, though, it's kind of hard to feel bad for Yomi because she was so annoying through the entire book, and I really, really disliked her as a character just because of how annoying she was. And I don't know, she just felt super selfish the whole time. I mean, obviously, he was like kind of a lying, skeezy dude, Hapleaf is, but, you know, she shouldn't have known that, and I don't know, maybe she like picked up on it and maybe she's nice to other people, but to me, she just rubs me as someone that's kind of mean to anybody she meets, really. So I just feel bad for Yopanek because he's never going to find out what happened to his fiance. Thrawn, during all this, has encountered a Magus woman who is the leader of about 200 followers, and she believes that her home world has been conquered and all of her people killed. So, of course, what does she do now with her 200 followers now that she realizes her homeworld was killed and everybody she knows she thinks is dead? Well, she says, let's kill ourselves because reasons. They kind of touch on it briefly and say, like, they think they're going to become part of the Force and that's going to help bring life back to the planet, but I mean, it just sounds just generally really crazy to me. Luckily, Thrawn and Thalius convince her to at least go look at the planet and make sure everybody's dead before you kill yourself. I mean, really, I just feel like this woman wanted to kill people because You didn't even go back to check to see if everyone was dead before you went to kill them all. I mean, come on, it's 200 people of your own. You could literally repopulate. 200 people is not like you're the last survivor. I mean, yeah, sure, of millions and billions of people, that's not many, but man, you're just gonna. She's crazy. They end up needing to put her in a cryopod to freeze her, just to kind of cool her down, and obviously she's gonna wake up pretty angry. But anyway, they calm her down by freezing her, and they get into this little skirmish where Senior Captain Lakinda shows up, and Lakinda is there for not very long and helps out a little bit, but then she's gotta go because she has to go on a secret family mission, which obviously, as we know, is the Nyax mine that her family's trying to conquer and raise their status to a ruling family. Lacro, the farmer, sends a brooch that was given to him by Hapleaf. He sends it over to Thrawn in the most convoluted way possible. I mean, it probably goes through like 10 different hands in a crazy game of telephone before it gets to Thrawn. But Thrawn looks at it and immediately he does recognize it because obviously, artwork is his thing. So he always picks up on these little details, but he's like, oh, whoa, yo, this design is the design of the woman I have in this cryopod. What are the chances of that? So they end up waking the woman up, who is, by the way, very mad, but they calm her down real quick, and after talking to her for a bit, they realize that her people are not dead, they are enslaved and forced to make this jewelry for the infamous Hapleaf and the Akbui. Thrawn ends up contacting Lakinda, who's on this secret family mission, and after talking through it with her for a bit, they realize that they're all being played and that mine is essentially worthless. So what they do is they form this plan to make it look like, they're fighting these bad people and, there's bad people attacking Thrawn's ship and he needs help because when he gets there, there's 3 different families that are trying to fight over this mine. So they want to inject themselves, Thrawn does, into the situation and kind of turn the Civil War fighting people, almost about to fight, to help Thrawn out in the Chiss Ascendancy, because now they're being recorded, so everybody's going to know what they're doing there, and this was definitely not an authorized mission, really, from most of the families, but anyway, long story short, Thrawn ends up blowing up the mine because he doesn't want them to realize that that mine was empty the whole time, because they believe it would cause so much political embarrassment that there would actually be a legitimate civil war afterwards, just because everyone's so embarrassed and backlashing at each other, just trying to dig themselves out of that situation they were in to begin with. Unfortunately, after Lakinda did that and kind of worked out a plan with Thrawn in secret, her crew kind of suspected her of being a traitor to the family, so there was a bit of a mutiny, and they took her out of command for the duration of that battle, though everything did still go according to plan. The really important thing that happened during this scene, though, was in order to take out the mine, they couldn't just blow it up. It had to look like a ship accidentally got shot and fell on top of the mine, because if they saw Thrawn just destroy the mine, then that looks really bad on all of the Chiss, and everybody gets mad, and there's an investigation and things. So they had to make it look like the mine was just destroyed as a happenstance. So how do you shoot a ship and then hope that it falls in the exact right spot? Well, they end up using Cheery, their Skywalker. So she uses her third sight to assist the gunman into firing at the exact time that would have the desired effect, essentially. And that's really important because Skywalkers have never used their ability in this way before. Previously, the only thing they would do is look a little bit into the future and steer the ship out of the way of incoming asteroids or different planets or suns or things like that, but they've never more proactively use their third sight. And this is exactly how Jedis use the Force. So it makes you wonder, if they keep using their Force in this way, would they retain their Force sensitivities any longer than previously? Because obviously we know Jedi usually get better in the Force as they age, whereas Skywalkers end up losing their ability in the Force by the time they're like 14. So, with that, I think, there's definitely some speculation to be had, but obviously Skywalkers are really, really strong in the Force when they're younger, and then they lose it as they get older. But I wonder, maybe they wouldn't be quite as powerful still, but would they retain some semblance of being able to use the Force in their older age if they proactively used it in ways like this? Using your abilities that way is kind of a huge no-no in the Skywalker world, as Thalius points out. I mean, even Cheery is kind of stunned afterwards, and she's like zoning out, and they can't really get her attention, so it's like almost like she got lost in the Force and they had to pull her back. So it's usually a big no-no, but it has huge implications on the Chiss Ascendancy. I mean, if this became a commonplace practice for them, then, I mean, they would be fighting like Jedis, essentially, and they would just have such a incredible advantage on the battlefield if they could use their Skywalker's abilities in this way, especially if they could prolong them a little bit. Anyways, at the end of the book, Hapleaf is trying to leave the planet. He thinks he's won. He's like, yep, they're going to do a civil war now, and it's going to destabilize them a bit. I'm out of here. But the farmer, Lacro, confronts him and is like, yo, WTF, what are you doing here? And like, obviously you're trying to bribe people because you're giving them these fancy metal brooches and things. And Lacro, because he's a psychopath, decides, I'm just going to kill this farmer and be done with it. So they end up getting in this big brawl, and Lacro, I am happy to announce, does win the fight and kills Hapleaf. I guess Lacro just hides the body and buries it somewhere, because later the Patriel comes to his door and it's like, hey, where's that Akbui? And he was like, yo, I have no idea, and just plays dumb the whole time. So I'm not sure exactly, why he didn't. I mean, I guess maybe it's still murder, so he didn't want to go to jail, I guess, for killing that dude. I don't know. But anyway, they did try to give Hapleaf like almost an empathetic story, because his whole thing was he just wants to go home and it's one last mission for Jixtus, and this is, once I do this, I'm done. But honestly, Hapleaf was a giant asshole through this entire book, and he's a terrible person. I mean, just like literally one of the worst. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. So I don't know why you even set that kind of empathetic looks up for him when I can't imagine anyone feeling bad for him. This is honestly probably the best ending he could have gotten. Lakinda might be on the bad side of her current family right now, but the Arizi family steps in, and they ask, does she want to be a trialborn? Which is a huge step up in rank, because not only is she just not just a merit adoptive, she's trialborn, but she's also elevated to a 9 ruling families position, which is huge. Though she does not immediately accept and says, I need some time to think about this, but I definitely hope she does accept, because come on, your family sucked. They tried to take over a stupid little mine for some metal. You could be higher rank and elevation in a better family that would probably look out for you way better. But obviously, she's got to think about it, and it's a big, I don't know, she got some connection to this family, I guess. Jixtus talks to the navigator Kalori and mentions the name Grisks, which is, I believe, the first time we're getting mention of that name. So we believe that's what Jixtus's race is. But also, why is Jixtus under a code name unless we already know who he is? Because it wouldn't make sense to do a code name if we didn't know you anyway. But I don't know. Perhaps I'll find out in book 3. Also, earlier in the book, Samacro, which is Thrawn's mid-captain, he sets a trap, kind of. He tells Thalius a lie for a reason that they're on a mission, and expects that to get leaked, and then he can be like, ha, I caught you, Thalius, that was a fake story, and now it's everywhere, and you're the only person that knew that story because I told it was a trap, blah, blah, blah. But obviously Thalius is, likely not a spy anymore, so she doesn't leak the information, so he's kind of questioning why it hasn't been leaked, but he doesn't believe she's not a spy. He just believes that she told the information, but whoever she told it to is sitting on the information and waiting for a more opportune time to kind of release it and disseminate that kind of information. I don't think Samacro is a traitor, though, because he's basically completely loyal to the Ascendancy, and everything he does is to better that. I don't think he would ever disobey Thrawn's orders, and he does see that Thrawn gets results, even if he does not agree in which the way Thrawn does them. The end of this book goes back to Thurfian, and by some weird twist of events, the current patriarch has died, and they have chosen him to be the new patriarch, which is very out of the norm. Historically, in their culture, it always goes to like a patriel or someone of a slightly higher rank than his own. But he happily accepts, and he's very excited because now all he can really think about is, I'm a oust Thrawn now. That's my first order of business is to exile this dude. Not a good time to oust Thrawn though, because the Grisk are on their way, and they are a big warmongering civilization. And I wouldn't actually be surprised if the way they ultimately end up beating the Grisk is using the Skywalkers in a more Jedi-like sense and getting them to use their abilities more proactively than preventatively. And I think that could be really interesting, but the Chiss just as a whole are very much about we've always done it this way, so that's how it has to be, and they're not good with taking new ideas and new suggestions. So I think it'll be a long, tough battle and a lot of political games that Thrawn is really going to need to get a better grasp of, but I guess we're just going to see how it plays out in the coming years. This book was good, but it honestly was not as much Thrawn as I would have wanted it to be. I mean, really, it was like 70% Hapleaf and then 30% Thrawn and Friends, so I'd like to see a little bit more Thrawn in the next book, but overall, it was good. I'm really excited to see where it goes, and I'm definitely interested in understanding why the Grisks are such a big threat in the universe. But let me know, what did you think about this book? Did you like it? Was there not enough Thrawn? Was it mostly just a bridge to get into book 3? Let me know down in the comments. I'm Keegs, and I will catch you all next time for Thrawn Lesser Evil.